Hello, my friend. It's wonderful to have you here tonight. Have you ever wondered why some people never seem to feel pressure? Not because they're stronger than everyone else, not because they're braver, but because they simply never learned to be afraid. Tonight, let's begin in a poor neighborhood near Barcelona. There, a little boy discovered the joy of playing football. At 15, he played for Barcelona. At 16, he carried Spain at the European Championship. At 17, he lifted the trophy. The whole world began calling him the next Messi. Yet through all the noise, all the expectations, all the pressure, his smile never changed. This is the story of Lamine Yamal. Lamine Yamal Nasraoui Abana was born on July 13th, 2007, in Esplugues de Llobregat, near Barcelona. His father, Munir Nasraoui, had come from Morocco. His mother, Sheila Abana, had come from Equatorial Guinea. Like many immigrant families, they worked hard every day to build a better life in Spain. Money was always tight. Some months, paying rent was a real struggle. Around the time Lamine was born, two men helped the young family through one of those difficult moments. Instead of asking for rent, they told Munir to take care of his newborn son first. It was a simple act of kindness, but one Munir would never forget. When it came time to name his baby, he made a decision that would stay with his son forever. He named him Yamal, not after any famous footballer, but after the two ordinary men who had helped his family when they needed it most. Years later, millions of football fans would know the name Lamine Yamal. Very few would know where it came from. When Lamine was 3, his parents separated. His mother moved to a town called Granollers. His father and grandmother stayed in Rocafonda, a working-class neighborhood in Mataró, about 30 kilometers north of Barcelona. Lamine grew up between two homes, but it was Rocafonda that would shape him. Rocafonda wasn't a beautiful place. It was a working neighborhood, home to families from Morocco, Senegal, Ecuador, and many other corners of the world. Some mornings, a family would carry their belongings out onto the street because they couldn't pay the rent. On those cracked streets, Lamine grew up. He played football on hard concrete, weaving between parked cars. His teammates were older and stronger. They kicked him. They pushed him around. They laughed when he fell. But the small boy always got up, and he was always smiling. When you play on streets like that, you learn fast. You learn to think quickly to stay close to the ball. You learn to laugh when someone kicks you, and you learn to get up again. In Rocafonda, if you were afraid, you didn't play. And if you didn't play, you had nothing. So the boy played every day, every hour, with a smile on his face. He didn't know it yet, but those streets were teaching him a lesson he would carry for the rest of his life. In 2007, at Camp Nou, a young Barcelona player knelt down to hold a baby only a few months old in his arms. That baby was Lamine. Nobody in the room realized what they had just captured. Lamina's father didn't want journalists to see the photograph. He didn't want his son compared to anyone from the day he was born. He wanted his boy to simply be Lamine. Nothing more. Only in the summer of 2024, once his son had become a star in his own right, did he finally decide to share it. Several years later, Lamine went to La Masia for the first time, Barcelona's famous youth academy. He was 7 years old. When he arrived, he realized he'd forgotten his boots at home. A coach found him an old pair, far too big for his small feet. He looked down, said nothing, and walked out onto the pitch. But the moment he touched the ball in those borrowed boots, the coaches couldn't believe their eyes. They stopped talking. They stopped taking notes. They just watched. One youth coach later remembered that day. This boy did things nobody had taught him. Whatever it was, In his genes, or learned on the streets, he had something the other children didn't have. He had the smile. He had the joy. And he had no fear. On the night of April 29th, 2023, Camp Nou was packed. Barcelona were cruising to a big win over Real Betis when head coach Xavi Hernandez called out a name from the bench. Lamine Yamal. 15 years, 9 months, 16 days old. He was about to become the youngest player to wear the Barcelona shirt in over a century. He walked onto the grass. He didn't look scared. He didn't look nervous. He didn't even look surprised. He glanced around once, then jogged to his position. After the match, Xavi shook his head, still amazed. I told him to go out and try things, and he did. He's special. He has no fear. But to Lamine, Camp Nou was no different from the Streets of Rocafonda, just another pitch. And he smiled the whole way through. Barcelona wasn't just any club. For nearly 20 years, one man had carried it on his shoulders. Lionel Messi. In 2021, Messi left, and Barcelona fell into a kind of darkness. The trophies stopped coming. Hope began to fade. Every young player who came through the academy was asked the same question, over and over. Are you the next Messi? Now, everyone was asking the same thing of this 15-year-old from Rocafonda. Lamine never seemed bothered. He only smiled. I don't compare myself to anyone, he told journalists. I just think about playing. Barcelona hadn't found the next Messi. They had found something they'd never had before. A boy who had never learned to be afraid. In September 2023, Lamine got the call, not from the youth ranks, but from Spain's senior national team. He was still just 16. In his first cap, against Georgia, he came on with Spain already well ahead. In the 74th minute, a cross came in from Nico Williams on the left. The ball found Lamine at the far post. He took his time, looked up, and fired it into the top corner. Goal. 16 years. 57 days old. The youngest player ever to score for Spain, breaking a record that had belonged to his own Barcelona teammate. By the summer of 2024, Lamine was 16 and heading to the European Championship in Germany, with a young Spanish squad nobody expected much from. On the right wing, Spain had a teenager going up against grown men. On July 9th, 2024, in Munich, Spain faced France in the semi-final. A France side built around Kylian Mbappé and one of the toughest defenses in football. In the 9th minute, France scored first. The dream seemed to be slipping away. 12 minutes later, the ball rolled out to the right wing. Lamine received it 25 meters from goal, 2 French defenders closing in. He didn't panic. He cut inside onto his left foot, saw the space, and struck. The ball curled through the air like a brushstroke, bending and bending, before kissing the far post and dropping into the net, just past the fingertips of a diving Mike Maignan. 16 years, 362 days old, the youngest player ever to score at a European championship, breaking a record Pelé had held since 1958. 66 years of history, undone in a single moment, because a boy from Rocafonda cut inside and smiled. Spain won 2-1. But the world had already seen what it needed to see. A star had been born, not in a scream or a raised fist, but in the calm face of a boy who looked exactly like he had at 15, exactly like he had at 7 in his borrowed boots. 4 days later, Lamine turned 17, celebrating quietly in a hotel room in Germany. The next day was the final. Spain against England. On July 14th, at Berlin's Olympic Stadium, Lamine, 17 years and 1 day old, became the youngest player ever to appear in a major international final in the history of football, breaking yet another of Pelé's records. Early in the second half, he danced past a defender on the right wing and rolled the ball across for Nico Williams to finish. Cole Palmer equalized for England before Michael Oyarzabal scored the winner in the 86th minute. Spain won 2-1, champions of Europe. Lamine was named Young Player of the Tournament. Amid the celebrations, he did something small but deeply personal. He raised his hands and formed a number with his fingers. 304, the last 3 digits of the postal code of Rocafonda, the neighborhood where he grew up. The boy from the cracked streets, the boy in the borrowed boots, was now a champion of Europe. And he had never forgotten where he came from. The world now knew his name. Sponsorship deals poured in. His number 10 shirt, the same number Messi once wore, became one of the best-selling jerseys on the planet. In September 2025, at 18 years old, Lamine stood on stage at the Ballon d'Or ceremony in Paris. He didn't win. The award went to Ousmane Dembélé, with Lamine finishing runner-up. His father was furious. Lamine only smiled, saying he was happy for Dembélé and would keep working. By the summer of 2026, at the World Cup, Lamine, carrying an injury for months, hadn't scored yet in Spain's round of 32 match against Austria. But he never stopped running, never stopped smiling, and was still named Man of the Match. Today, there's a wall in Rocafonda painted with a simple message. More Lamine Yamals, fewer evictions. In other words, more children with hope, and fewer families forced from their homes. Lamine has never forgotten Rocafonda. He still visits the neighborhood. He still stops by the local spot where his signed shirt hangs proudly on the wall. He still hugs his grandmother. And every time he scores, he raises his fingers, 304, the last 3 digits of the postal code of the neighborhood where he learned to play, learned to smile, and learned that fear was a waste of time. Millions of people watch him now. But that gesture isn't for the cameras. It's for the streets that raised him, and for the people who believed in a little boy long before the rest of the world did. Lamine was never afraid, not because he was braver than everyone else, but because growing up with so little, he stopped worrying about losing. You simply play. You take the chance in front of you, because it might be the only one you get. The stadium is only ever as big as your fear of it. Carry your own Rocafonda with you, the place that shaped you, the people who believed in you, the lessons that made you who you are. Then no stage will ever feel too big.